What's up everybody, Nameless Co here today. We're currently sitting in my L300 Delica. As you guys can see, I've got the driver's seat fully removed and the engine bay is completely exposed. Now in today's video, I'm going to be installing a 3-in-1 boost gauge, so primarily for EGTs, and then my boost, like what boost I'm running. So the reason why I'm doing this is because in the future I'm planning on turning up the boost. Now before I turn up the boost, I want to see what my L300 is making currently. Now I have mine completely gutted, no seats or anything, and it seems to be pulling pretty hard as is, so I'm guessing it's gonna be making anywhere from 10 to 12 psi. Now the overboost relief valve on the 4D56 opens up at about 13 psi, so I have yet to hear it open up, so who knows, maybe I'm making 8 or 9 psi. But in today's video, I'm gonna be basically deleting my EGR valve, which is right here. Mine's super caked on with a bunch of soot, and on my L400 it actually came already deleted. I'm pretty sure Rising Sun did that when they imported it. But as you guys can see, I've got both plates right here tapped and already screwed. I was gonna show you guys that part, but it's not too hard to do, so I figured I'd just leave it out. If you guys want to learn on how to do that, there's a bunch of sources online on how to do that. So I've got my EGT probe right here and then my boost sensor right here. So without further ado, I'm gonna take off the EGR valve. Hopefully it's not too much of a pain in the ass. Sometimes the studs do break because they are old, but knock on wood, there is no wood around here. So let's get on with the install and take off the EGR valve. First things first is going to be removing the two 12mm bolts on the upper EGR valve assembly, whatever you want to call it. They're actually pretty easy to get. I recommend getting like a self-ratcheting wrench, just makes your life a lot easier. May have to remove this pipe right here to actually get the bolt out, which is what it seems like I'm going to be having to do. All right, so I've got the intake pipe to the turbo loose. It's just these two 12mm bolts. Now I'm going to pull out the 12mm bolts that are holding the EGR in. They're kind of long because it's like, obviously it has to hold the whole valve in to the upper part of the turbo manifold. As you can see, I've got one right here completely coated in soot, as per usual. It's a diesel, what's new. I don't actually need these bolts anymore, so I'm just gonna throw them away, but I'm gonna get this other bolt out, and then we're gonna head underneath the Delica and undo the other side of the valve, which is what everyone says is a lot harder. All right, so attempt number 2 at getting this bolt off right here. I'm gonna now try and get it off with this deep socket. Kind of hard. Okay, I think that turned. Hopefully this nut is coming off. Oh, that doesn't look too good, guys. I might have just pulled the stud. It's hard to tell. I might just be literally moving the whole fucking stud out, but I've already gotten in, so I think I'm just removing the whole stud at this point. Yeah. That's just the whole stud coming out. This is very common for this to happen. I'm gonna attempt to just reinstall it like with it in when I put the plate in. So might be able to bypass this since obviously I don't have studs. Studs are definitely universal. I know I could probably go get one if it does break off, but we're gonna attempt to get this whole thing out. Gonna swap tools here. Yeah, the whole stud's moving, but you know what? I expected it.
it's a, you know, 25-plus-year-old van, so to be expected. So as you guys can see, I actually managed to get to not break the stud. So this is what the stud, and then obviously that bolt has seen better days. I'm basically just gonna reinstall it like that, and then we'll be good to go. So hopefully the top just comes off exactly how the bottom did.
Alright guys, so I've come up with this interesting tool that I'm going to be using to access the top bolt on the lower EGR valve. It's two 6-inch extensions, and then I have an adapter to a 1/4-inch socket, which is that 12mm on the end of it. So I just test fitted it and it fits on perfectly, so we're gonna now hopefully crack it and just pull the whole stud like we did with the lower one. All right, so I'm gonna now attempt to crack it, being very careful, but as you can see, it's like on it all the way down there. Don't want to put too much pressure on it, so you obviously don't want to snap it. Okay. I want to say that was a clean loosen. Did not seem like it broke. So we're going to take it all the way off now and then pull this valve out so you guys can see how sooted up it is. Alright, so honestly, both studs came back out perfectly, so good to go on that end. Now we're gonna actually pull the whole EGR valve off of the intake manifold and exhaust manifold. Just like that, valve pops off. And this is probably the best modification you can do to a diesel powered vehicle. As you guys can see, it is super sooted up in there. Seems like the valve is still working, but who knows, honestly, these days. Save that gasket, gonna reuse that for the blanking plate when I install the boost gauge, which will be in the intake manifold. And then, like I said, the exhaust gauge is gonna be probed into the exhaust manifold, so sweet. So we've got the boost sensor, like I said before, tapped into the upper intake manifold blanking plate, which is gonna go right here. But before I put it on, I'm gonna grab that gasket that I told you guys about, wherever I decide to litter it at. Right there. Oh, sometimes it's always just hiding in plain sight. So I'm gonna line those holes up, and then I've got these two bolts right here. I'm gonna see how many washers I need. The kit that I got supplied me with everything I needed, including the vacuum line block off, which you guys can see here, but the one that I had actually didn't have like a plug in it. It was just this little piece of rubber, so I just found like an old screwdriver and then just plugged it off. You can pretty much use a golf tee or, you know, whatever you guys can use to just plug it. I'm gonna go double washer on this one because I don't want these studs to not be long enough, or the not studs but the bolts to not be long enough. Seems like it's 12mm again with those crush washers. Snug it up onto the manifold. Not gonna go over like too crazy with it, just getting it tight, you know. And now voila, first blanking plate is installed with that boost sensor, like I said. Now we're gonna take this guy right here, which is arguably the most important sensor that you will need on a diesel in general, let alone a Delica. I'm gonna explain more about this later in the video, but this is the lifeblood right here of keeping your engine from exploding. All right, so the boost and EGT probe are both installed. Now, all that's left is this water temp, like coolant temp probe. Now, what a lot of people do is they'll install it directly into the coolant line, and they'll just put like a little kind of like adapter gauge, and then they screw it in. I don't really have one of those for the L300. I have one for the L400. But another cool thing that I'm gonna probably do, just because I just noticed it, is because I don't have working AC, the AC like temp sensor, which basically sends the signal to the like module and it tells it to stop when the engine's overheating, is right in where the like upper expansion or the upper radiator line is. It's like kind of right there, as you guys can see it. You can actually take that out, right? I'll move my finger, but you can actually take that out and then replace it with this. But because I don't have a crow's foot, I mean, if you don't know what a crow's foot is, you can just look it up. I'm not able to re-tighten this in once I get the old one out. So I'm just gonna not do that right now. I don't really need to worry about water temp just because I already have a working temp gauge on my dash. So I'll probably just feature this in a later date in another video that we make. But for now, I'm basically gonna just start buttoning everything up and then get this gauge powered and then kind of hook it up and show you guys how I'm doing it. All right guys, so we've got all the sensors connected to the gauge. Now I'm gonna basically be finding power for the gauge, and then I'm gonna show you guys where I'm gonna be mounting it. Now, where I'm gonna be mounting it is not gonna be a permanent spot, just because it is gonna be needed to move, like I'm gonna have to move the gauge around. But as you guys can see, here's the gauge, and then we have the power right here. I'm only gonna be doing 3 out of the, I don't think I'm gonna be doing the headlight switch, which basically dims the gauge when you have the headlights on. I don't really mind a bright gauge, and it's just one more thing that I have to tap. But I am gonna be using these pretty cool, they're called Add-A-Fuse. You can actually buy them pretty much anywhere. Most auto shops sell them. I got this kit online, but basically you just plug it into the fuse box, you find the constant, and you want to make sure that the constant power is on this left one, essentially, which is the outside one. So you want to make sure that you get your multimeter and you check for power, and then you're going to make sure that it's plugged in corresponding the right way. So I'm going to go find that fuse right now, dial it all in, and then turn it on, see if it has power. I don't think that one's gonna work. So we've got both fusible links connected right now. The red is gonna be the constant power, and then the white is gonna be the switched power, so accessory mode on. Now I'm just trying to find a fitting for this ground right now. A little bit difficult, but I'm able to find it because I have this handy dandy little kit from Harbor Freight, as you guys can see right here. I've got pretty much everything I need there. So once I get this ground connected, we're then gonna power up the vehicle and see if we get those 2 readings, which we should. But yeah, where did that come from? Huh, that's the last one I needed. Cool. Yeah, let me get this on black. We just got in the Delica now. As you guys can see, I've got the gauge mounted up and the EGT works, and we're actually about to go see how much boost this thing is making. Now, most 45.6 owners report that they make around 9 PSI, so I'm expecting to be somewhere around that number. I don't know what it is yet. So we're gonna go and drive it and see. If I'm at 9, then we're probably gonna end up turning the boost up tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But I'm really excited to go drive it right now and see if the EGR Valve Delete actually made a difference or not. So without further ado, let's go give it some gas or diesel. Down a bit, 700 degrees.
That was 9 PSI.
So that's a good sign. We know the Delica is running healthy, wastegate's working properly. Now all we got to do is just install the boost controller and then crank it up to about 11 or 12, and that's going to substantially make this thing climb a lot better up hills and just honestly make it run a lot more efficiently. So we're going to give it another little pull from third, about 2,000 RPM. running well, and I'm honestly very, very excited to see what's in store for this Ford E56, considering it only has 276,000 kilometers on it. All right guys, so we're gonna catch you guys tomorrow, and we're gonna crank the boost up to about 12 PSI, so let's get to that. All right guys, new day now. Just got everything disassembled, driver seats off. Right now we're actually pulling the wastegate vacuum line that goes from the turbo to the wastegate off, and as you guys can see, I just removed it right here. It's pretty insulated, but because we're gonna be rerouting the new Turbo Smart boost controller vacuum line, I won't really need this anymore. And as you guys can see right now, we got that nice black one provided to by Zev. Truly, thank you, I appreciate that. But without further ado, we're gonna toss the line on, and I'm probably gonna end up mounting the controller somewhere over here just so that it's easy access when we're adjusting the boost. And I'll also show you guys how I'm gonna be adjusting the boost. And like I said before, we're not gonna be going above 12 PSI because that is when the overboost relief valve, which I mentioned yesterday, will blow off. So who knows, maybe it'll blow off at 13 and we can go exactly to 12, but we're probably gonna have to tone it down to 11. So without further ado, let's get to work. All right guys, this is my setup right here. I've got a little 1/2-inch hose clamp, and I'm now gonna be putting it on the vacuum side of the turbo that goes from turbo to wastegate. Just like that, slides on mint. And now I'm gonna tighten it up down there with my mini ratchet, little 1/4-inch guy. I'm super excited for this mod, honestly. It's been a long time coming. All right, so I moved around to the other side of the vehicle because I'm gonna be mounting the Turbo Smart Boost T controller right here. And I'm probably gonna be mounting it right somewhere kind of like in this general vicinity. Yeah, I haven't decided, but before I mount it, I'm actually gonna take the current vacuum line that I installed, and I'm gonna be zip tying it like so, like right here, to follow this kind of line that most of the other ones are taking already. And because it's aftermarket line, it shouldn't be prone to heat, but we shall see what happens. So I'm gonna grab some zip ties and then get this mounted up. All right, so I'm gonna be mounting it right now. I just got it in place. I'm gonna be mounting it to this like wiring harness right here, which goes to the battery. Just a zip tie will be sufficient for this. It doesn't really need to be in super secure. They gave me a little mounting bracket, but I figured it's not necessary in case I want to move locations or if I need to shorten the boost line for whatever reason, if that's affecting something, which I don't think it will be. So let me pop a zip tie on there right now and then get this thing back together. All right guys, so we got the interior fully put back together, and we're gonna be taking it out right now, and we're gonna be running it at fully counterclockwise on the boost gauge. So it should be making 9 PSI, which is what it was making last night. And once we know it's making 9 PSI, we're then gonna go 2 clicks at a time and then see how many clicks it takes to get to 11 PSI or 12 PSI, depending on when the overboost relief valve starts to blow off. So let's get to driving. So we just took the Delica for the first test run. We couldn't get it clipped because it was too sunny and glary, but it actually made 10 PSI on a couple of the pulls, but still roughly around 9. So I'm gonna pop the passenger seat up and then adjust it 2 clicks up and see what it's at. I'm guessing it's probably gonna be consistently 10 instead of like 9 and then sometimes bouncing into 10. I think that's called boost spiking is when it does that. But because it's such a low PSI application, I don't really need to worry about taking out the spring inside of the boost controller. But for higher PSI applications, you do have to do that sometimes if you do get boost spiking. So I'm gonna pop open the seat and then give it 2 clicks and then take it back on the road. Yeah, I can feel the overboost pulling off, but that pulls a lot fucking harder though, wow. I even just noticed with like barely giving it a little bit more gas, the amount of pickup this thing has, but I saw it bounce up to like 11 and then I could kind of feel the like overboost valve. So that's gonna be the next step, and I'll probably say that for another video, is deleting and plugging the overboost relief valve. So that's actually gonna be able to give us consistently 12 PSI, and that's all we need in this thing really. So let's do some more pulls. We're gonna loop back and see what it does. 11, we might be able to turn it up. I'm just gonna give it one more click and see where that's at. And then, cause I didn't feel it open up right now, so one more click and then we're gonna do another pull and see what it does. Alright guys, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. Sorry that last clip was a bit shaky. We were on a pretty bumpy road, but we did achieve 12 PSI, so the boost controller works and everything else in this video, the gauge, it all works perfectly. All I gotta do is just tap into that headlight fuse so that it dims while we're at night, while we're driving it at night, because it was pretty bright last night, as you guys probably saw from the videos. But in terms of future mods with the Delica to look forward to, I do have a new turbo for this thing, so who knows, things could get pretty crazy. We might even bump it up to 16 PSI and tune the fuel pump as well for you guys, so stick around for those videos. And in terms of Nameless Co content in general, we've got 944s, we've got Volvos, and a whole lot more coming for you guys, so stick around for all the other type of content that we make on Nameless Co, and even some new JDM cars to be introduced as well. So without further ado, that's gonna wrap it up for today's video, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.